looky.
She is the perfect fit, I promise.
Did she even see you?
She was about to.
What are you doing? Don't do this. Blue. No, no, no.
Hi. Oh, God.
What if imaginary friends existed in real life? How absolutely scary would that be? But anyway, If is done by John Krasinski, who, still off of, his directing for Quiet Place 1 and 2, which I like both those movies. I know not a lot of people like 2, but I'm like, I enjoyed both those movies. Now he's leaving the horror genre to do a kind of children's fantasy comedy type film. So this is what we got, If. So the story of this one is a girl who lives with her dad, or who is visiting her dad. They lost their mother, but she's staying with her grandmother, and upstairs in the kind of complex is this guy who is played by Ryan Reynolds, who knows that, like, imaginary friends are actually not imaginary, they're in reality, they're real, and it's his job to help them out and find, the right one to go with each kid. Okay, I like that idea. But here's the issue that I've seen a lot of people talk about this, and I noticed it. This kind of feels similar to the Cartoon Network show Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends. And I was like, okay, I understand that you're doing this, but there's so many similarities between the two, and it's just, you can't overlook it, even no matter how hard you try, which sucks. But I did like how each imaginary friend has somewhat of a different animation style. They're all kind of the same, but they all are different. So I liked that. So they definitely were very creative with that, where it's like, hey, what if one of them was a flaming marshmallow? What if one of them was an Italian rat? What if one of them was a bee? What if one of them was was an astronaut? And they keep going and going and going, which is cool, because it's just like, yeah, it's like, let's just get creative here. So that was cool. And they also have a ton of people in this movie, like a ton of voice talent. Like Steve Carell. You have Matt Damon does a voice, George Clooney does a voice, Sebastian Maniscalco, who's one of my favorite comedians, he does a voice. Amy Schumer, no offense, but yuck. But you just have a ton of people, to the point where it went, I was playing the who is that voice game. And, it was just like, wow, there's just so many people in this. And I was like, okay, that's kind of cool. But the other thing, too, is that some of the imaginary friends, where you barely see them, you kind of like, okay, I kind of want more of them. Because it's because sometimes a lot of them are brought in to tell a joke, and then they're gone for a little bit. Where it's like, but I wanted to see more of them over these other ones. Like, personally, the Amy Schumer one needed to go away. But moving on. So it was kind of like all right, you're gonna focus on these ones. I get it, and all these other ones are just kind of like in the background. We're not going to focus too much on them. Every once in a while, they'll come in and do a voice. It really felt like some of the voice talent, they were in the recording booth for a bit, and then some came in for maybe 2 hours at most, and then we're like, okay, I'm done, bye. because they really don't have a whole lot to do or say, which is also one of the issues with this, is that it feels like all these different things trying to play in one another, and it's like, yeah, this doesn't really work here. It feels very random what you're doing. It felt like a randomizer at times, whereas like, hey, we're gonna take a break, we're gonna stop the movie so we can do this really quick random part, and then we're gonna go right back into it, but the random part doesn't serve anything. So it's like, okay, like, all right. This actually had a lot more heart than I thought it was going to. Like, there was like legitimately like one part where I went, damn, like, wow, that was, I don't think I've seen that before. And so I think that's something that Krasinski does very well. Like, you know, like, if you really look at like something like Quiet Place, yes, you have like all these, these creatures that have incredible hearing, so they need to be quiet. But at the same time, it's a story about, this family and just how, this apocalypse has just kind of broken them all down. So it's really a family study. And this one has it too. It really does. But then at the same time, it's, the kind of explanation of the imaginary friends, like how you see them is kind of like, oh yeah, you either have the mind of a child, which makes sense, or you just have a very incredible imagination. And it's like, okay, but is there something better you could have written there? So I think this movie works and doesn't work at the same time. There are definitely moments that have really well done, heartwarming moments. Like, there's a part where Steve Carell's imaginary friend, he finds his kid who's now all grown up, and there's like it kind of turns into like a little comedy bit until like the very end of that. It actually was like, wow, that was a lot of heart right there. And even like a part where girl's grandmother, parts. I thought like that's well written. I think John Krasinski writes family stuff very well and finds a right tone and right balance with, family drama or like family comedy or even like some heartwarming moments. He's able to find really good spots to fit all that. And I think he does a really good job with that. It's mainly just like the comedy is very much a rapid fire. It's like, hey, look at this imaginary friend, look at that. Or, hey, like, look at this funny thing they said, and then they're just off the screen. And sometimes it works, but other times it doesn't. It felt like open mic night for imaginary friends, where it's like, hey, they want their 5 minutes, they want their 5 minutes, they want their 5 minutes, and it just kept going and going and going. And like I said, sometimes it was funny, but then sometimes it wasn't. And, so while I think the performances were good and there was a lot of creativity that went into the imaginary friends, then at the third act there was kind of a, I guess you can say, twist reveal that I was like, yeah, I don't think that works. I'm not gonna say what it was, but it had to deal with the girl and who her imaginary friend was. And I'm not going to say what it was, but I'm like, yeah, I don't think that works, personally. So I think this is, it's an interesting movie that works and doesn't work at the same time. But for the problems I did have, I think it does work for the most part. While I said that the humor to me doesn't really work because it felt like a rapid fire, and it was something kind of similar to something Cartoon Network did, like Foster's Home. But, you know, overall, it's a kids' movie, and to be honest, it's one of the better kids' movies that I've seen in recent years, because, you know, certain ones that just try to be hip, and this one doesn't try it, so thankfully that was a good thing. Despite having some issues, this still worked where it did, so I give this about an average. I think if you have kids, and, you know, they want to see, like, hey, colorful looking characters on the screen, then, you know, show this to them. I think when it comes to imaginary stuff in animation, honestly, I think Inside Out did a way better job with tackling that subject, because it was like, it was like, yeah, okay, it was imaginary friend, and then they're gone, but with the way Inside Out did it, it was more like, damn, that's just messed up. Where with this, it was kind of like, okay, there's really no, it really doesn't feel like there's any consequences, which kind of sucks. But overall, I think this works for the most part. And if you have kids, I think they'll be entertained by it. So, you know, imaginary friends are very powerful.
Starting to see why I live alone. Kate! What kind of a kid creates an invisible if? Don't look him in the eye.
Which one?
You know damn well which one.
Thanks for doing this. It really means a whole lot.